Good evening. Welcome to the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. My name is LD Robinson, and I am your reader for this evening. And we are happy to be here with you again tonight. It is day 20, it is Forgiveness Day. And so we have a selection for you concerning forgiveness. And we're just here. I'm sorry. We're here giving voice to words written by Black people around the world. And our mission, one of our goals, is to encourage the exploration, purchase, and reading of books written by Black people. And so we hope that you are enjoying this year's selections and that you are purchasing those, adding those to your subscription libraries, checking them out from your libraries, and simply enjoying all the different um, all the diverse offerings of Black literature that we have been sharing. And so we are excited to be here with you on day 20. We've only got one day we've got to make up, and that's Thriller Day. And we'll be bringing that to you this weekend. And so we've got 8 more days to go. We've been trucking along, and I've got this big smile on my face because my voice has stayed with me this all this time. And so I've been doing some things differently too, but we're glad about it. And today, our selection, we have a return for day 20 for forgiveness. And um, our selection that we have for today is one that we read a few days ago on wellness. And so forgiveness and wellness go together. And so our selection for today is The Garden Within, um, where the war with your emotions ends and, excuse me, your most powerful life begins by Dr. Anita Phillips. And so we're going to be reading from the chapter entitled Freeing the Angry Heart. And let's put our cover up again right here so that you can see it. And this is our selection, The Garden Within, where the war with your emotions ends and your most powerful life begins by Dr. Anita Phillips. And we are happy to have this as a return selection for this year. This is a wonderful book, and it came out a few years ago, but it is a staple in the library. I say it should be a staple in your library because it is a book that covers such a range of things dealing with mental health and wellness and how to um, identify and confront your emotions so that you win the battle, right? Okay, and so here's our selection Free the Angry Heart. We're going to read part of chapter 13. This hope will not lead to disappointment. Romans chapter 5, verses 5, New Living Translation. Early in my career, I led therapy groups for adults who had experienced sexual abuse. Michelle was a group member who became a peer leader. She had grown tremendously after her work in the group, and she had shared her secret with many people, including her family. Michelle's sexual abuse was no longer a secret. Her abuser, her stepfather, had died some years earlier, and he had 2 children with her mother. While attending a family reunion, Michelle was surprised by the arrival of her half sister, since the reunion wasn't for her side of the family. During the event, people had an opportunity to write the names of loved ones who had passed away on a poster board for their great grandmother to keep. Michelle was shocked when her half sister wrote her father's name, the name of Michelle's abuser, on the memorial board in her presence. The name was followed by the words, "Forever alive in my heart." You can imagine how angry Michelle felt. Yet she didn't let her anger show. She swallowed it, keeping her face straight and not saying a word. She didn't want to ruin this moment for her great grandmother. After telling me this story, I asked if she had confronted her half sister after they were no longer in her great grandmother's presence, but her answer was no. She had chosen to hold her anger in. Weeks later, I asked Michelle if she still felt angry. She said she was no longer angry and was leaving it in the past. I challenged her. Anger releases mighty energy in our system, I said. It doesn't go away just like that. I asked if she would mind revisiting it with me, and she agreed. After she recalled the scene and let herself go back there for a moment, she told me how she was feeling. Yeah, I'm really mad, she admitted. What would you like to have done after this happened? I would have asked my half sister why she did something like that. I nodded. How do you feel? I felt disrespected, Michelle said. How else did you feel? Like I didn't matter, she answered. She knows what her father did to me, and she celebrated him in front of me. That always says to me, I don't matter. I listened to the rest of her story and asked her what she needed. To feel like I matter, Michelle said. We can't make your half sister feel that you matter. So, what can you ask for that she can give you? I can ask for her to respect me. I need to feel respected. We discussed whether she should go back and communicate with her half sister how she felt and what she expected in the future. Michelle decided to set a boundary. She understood that this was her half sister's father, but she asked that she respect by not bringing him up in her presence. Don't tell all these great stories about him, celebrating him as if he hadn't abused me. After Michelle told me about this, I asked her what she would do if her half sister didn't honor her request. A boundary without a consequence is not a boundary, it's a preference. So if she brings up your stepfather in your presence, what will be your next move? I ask. Will you decide to leave? Will you say that you won't attend family events anymore? What will you do? Well, if she brings him up, I'll bring him up. If she wants to talk about who he is, I'll talk about who he was. That's a pretty high incentive, I said. Are you going to let her know that? Michelle said yes. She sent her half sister an email letting her know what her response would be if her stepfather's name was celebrated in her presence. Michelle never received a response, but she still knew that her half sister had received the message. Anger in, anger out. Michelle felt so much better after this. This was really important for her because it gave her the opportunity to resist falling back into an old pattern, one where we don't talk about the sex abuse, where we don't ever bring up our pain, the pattern of thinking that says, I'm responsible for keeping this secret and I can allow other people to be more comfortable than me. A pattern that's not good for her, especially since one thing Michelle wants to do is help meet the needs of other sex abuse survivors. She has already done this in many ways. She's led the group and she's shared her story at retreats and events. Michelle has been living on purpose in this area of her life. She wants to meet this need, so how can she continue to do it? The gift of her story, the gift of her voice. If Michelle had allowed her anger to be turned inward, it would have silenced her and undermined the way she wanted to live on purpose. It would diminish her capacity to offer her story and her voice to the community of people who have survived sex abuse. Anger was challenging her purpose, yet she reclaimed her voice. I was happy to see her do this. Michelle has big plans for the coming years for continuing to use her voice. Anger is always better out than in. What anger does to your body? Anger is not a rare experience for me. Like Cain, Moses, Peter, Jonah, and some of you, my anger is what we therapists call easily accessible. I know that anger is as much a physical experience as an emotional one, but that's not true for everyone. Some personalities are far less prone to anger, and other people are just uncomfortable with it. They may have grown up in an environment where anger was threatening. Then there are those who learned early on that anger was unacceptable or dangerous. That can lead to repressing anger for so long that you can be angry without being aware of it. I have a friend who thought that might be her, so she asked me how she could know whether she was angry. In case you need that answer too, here's what I asked her to do. Think of a time in your life when you know without a shadow of doubt that you were mad. even if you have to go all the way back in time to that elementary school boundary violation involving a certain box of crayons. Close your eyes and replay the scene. Really step into that moment. Then notice what's happening to and in your body. Some people notice that their face or the back of their neck gets hot. Others may fold their hands into a fist. Anger often involves a sensation of heat and muscle tension. What are you noticing? Learning how anger shows up in your body will help you to acknowledge and process it rather than ignoring or repressing it. Just because you don't feel it doesn't mean it's no longer there. Throughout this journey, we have taken our direction from scripture and creation. In Jonah's story and in the parable of the sower, anger directly affected the plant's root system. In stony soil, a plant grows until the roots are compromised. In our garden, that translates to the roots of the tree. In our bodies, that translates to the roots of the vagus nerve, in which we will explore the biology of anger and joy as it relates to the contribution of the gut brain axis to understand one route by which sustained anger undermines our physical well being. The tree of life within. In chapter 11, you learn that the vagus nerve, um, I want to say the vagus nerve, forms a tree in the center of your embodied garden. It has a fruit system above the heart and a root system below the heart. Look at it again. From the seed planted in your heart, its roots descend deep into your belly. When your gut is healthy, it supports physical and emotional well being. And one of the ways it affects both is by making serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter known to support feelings of happiness, satisfaction, and optimism. Low serotonin is a contributor to some painful emotions like despair and anxiety. Since serotonin has almost always been talked about in terms of the brain, it may surprise you to hear that only about 10% of the serotonin in your body is made there. The remaining 90% is made in your gut. Serotonin is sometimes referred to as the happiness molecule because its claim to fame is its influence on mood, but the well being molecule would be a more apt moniker. Serotonin influences physical health by being essential to many of the functions of our embodied lives. Quote, serotonin plays a key in such body functions as sleep, digestion, nausea, wound healing, bone health, bone clotting, and sexual desire, end quote. When our bodies are well and we are eating good, nutritious food, serotonin flows freely through our gut. Just as a plant's root draws moisture from the soil up into the stems, leaves, and fruit, the vagus nerve draws serotonin from the gut and carries it all the way up to the big brain fruit in our heads. And just as a plant in stony soil could not survive the heat because its roots could not draw water, when the serotonin level in our gut dries up, the roots of the vagus nerve um, cannot deliver the serotonin the brain needs. Fluctuations of serotonin levels in the brain affect brain regions that enable people to regulate anger. Serotonin levels are diminished by stress and lack of food. Chronic health issues. When anger is too frequent, too intense, and too enduring, we describe it as chronic. It leads to problems for your body. Chronic anger has, quote, let me go back. Chronic anger has, quote, been linked to obesity, low self esteem, migraines, drug and alcohol addiction, depression, sexual performance problems, increased heart attack risk, lower quality relationships, higher probability of abusing others emotionally or physically or both, higher blood pressure, and risk of stroke. Chronic anger also leads to increased anxiety, insomnia, mental or brain fog, and fatigue. And it can reduce the immune system to fend off threats, leading to an increased risk of infection and even possibly cancer. End quote. Chronic anger has also been associated with increased pain perception. End quote. All anger is not created equal. Ephesians 4:26 says, quote, be ye angry and sin not, end quote. Considering the spiritual, the spirit, excuse me, let me get it to go. Considering the spiritually, mentally, and physically destructive potential of anger, why doesn't the scripture say, do not be angry so you won't sin? Is anger ever a good thing? The answer is yes, sometimes it is. Anger is not a sin. No emotion is a sin. So, why this warning about anger and not sadness or fear? I believe it's a question of balance. Let me explain. One way to study emotions through an academic lens is to categorize them in ways that clarify similarities and differences. Two common categories are called valence and motivational direction. Valence labels emotions as positive or negative. I don't like that because all emotions can play a functional role. So let's say that an emotion is painful or pleasurable, or that is desirable or not so much. Motivational direction refers to whether an emotion is approach related or avoidance related. Does it move you toward that something, or would you rather run away? Approach related emotions are generally pleasurable, while emotions that motivate us to avoid or fight against something generally have, you guessed it, a painful balance. When something makes us sad or afraid, our reflex is to run away from it or fight until we are safe again. Anger breaks those rules. Anger is painful and highly approach oriented. In fact, quote, according to the motivational direction theory, anger is similar to arousing positive emotions and should be associated with approach tendencies, end quote. Sadness and fear play defense, but anger plays offense. So angry feelings are much more likely to result in a regrettable act than other emotions. So, be ye, quote, be ye angry and sin not, end quote, makes a lot of sense. Anger makes us more vulnerable to behaving in ways that contradict the values we normally adhere to. But anger itself is not wrong to feel, and not all anger is created equal. We define emotion as the impact a situation has on our body and brain. When it comes to different types of anger, it's especially important to consider the situation. Two situations that evoke healthy anger are boundary violations and injustice. Excuse me. These situations make us angry because something valuable has been treated as less than. Anger draws our attention to what's important to us. And we're going to go to the story, a story from my own couch. A conversation about anger naturally raises the topic of forgiveness. Forgiveness is not my strong suit. I made a podcast episode called The F Word to share my whole ugly, sticky, embarrassing, honest story about how I have struggled with unforgiveness over the years. The first time I confronted it spiritually, I was 19 years old at a college campus ministry retreat where we were having 5 a.m. prayer every morning. One morning, the pastor leading the prayer told us to pray about forgiveness and ask us to intentionally forgive anyone that we had not forgiven. I started listing people and saying to myself, I forgive this person and I forgive that person. Then someone came to mind, and I was not able to get any words out of my mouth. On that one, out of the abundance of my heart, the mouth did not speak. I had nothing to say, but I was disturbed by the fact that in the presence of God, I was unable to shift my feelings and thoughts about this person. A few years earlier, she and I had been close friends. Then she betrayed me. Granted, I had done something wrong, but I was still deeply disappointed by her lack of girl code loyalty. You will have to listen to the episode to get the whole story. But my point is this: I ended up going on a 3 day fast just to pray for help with forgiving this sister. At the end of the fast, I was able to say, quote, I forgive, end quote. I was able to say her name. I felt so good. I was new in my fresh commitment to the Lord and feeling like a spiritual superstar. I was so relieved that I had gotten it done, but I didn't know then just how much God had done. Later that summer, I went to visit my childhood hometown, and while driving through the old neighborhood with a friend in the car, I saw the young woman I had fasted and prayed for help with forgiving. I slammed on the brakes, rolled down the car window, yes, it was that long ago, and said, "Hey, how are you?" She looked startled, unsure whether something dangerous was about to happen. I didn't understand why she seemed confused. I chatted with her for a moment, asking how she had been and letting her know what I was up to. Then I said a cheerful goodbye and drove away. A couple of blocks later, I slammed on the brakes again. Suddenly, I knew why she looked so confused. I had seen her without remembering that I had ever been angry. In that moment, the incident seemed to have been wiped from my memory. That was truly a turning point in my relationship with the Lord. Am I saying that all you need to do is fast to forget whatever happened to you that hurt you? No. Imitating how God delivers others is not the way to go. That was something that God led me to do at that time. What I am saying is to use all your tools. I have a number of steps that I engage in to prevent getting angry and help me forgive because forgiveness is hard for me. I would rather avoid the work. You'll have to listen to the episode to hear that part too. I also use the applications that I have just shared with you when I need to discharge excess anger from my body. Never lay down your spiritual tools. Too often, as we come into an understanding of how we are made and how our well being is optimized through the lens of creation, we stop doing something else spiritual that we were doing. I don't want you to stop using your spiritual weapons to battle for good things, but I do want you to engage your body and go to therapy. Do everything that's available to you that can help. The Word of God is a weapon. Praise and worship can be used as weapons. Prayer is a weapon. Therapy is a strategy. Physical movement is a strategy. Meditation is a strategy. We have spiritual weapons. They are intangible but powerful. And we have tangible interventions that make excellent strategies. Use your weapons and your strategies. And that is our selection for today from The Garden Within, where the war with your emotion ends and your most powerful life begins by Dr. Anita Phillips. And it is day 20, forgiveness. And we hope that this selection helps you in becoming one who is um, willing and ready to forgive when you need to, because we all need forgiveness at some point. We don't always get it right. And of course, some things are harder and take more faith to forgive than others. Stubbing my toe and it is very different from shooting my pet, for example. So those are two different things. Dropping the hammer on my toe, and uh, killing a loved one. Those are two different things and require um, different levels of faith, if you will, and they bring about different feelings. Okay, and so we learned the other day when we talked about wellness that emotions are a matter of faith and feelings. Okay. And so we hope that this selection on forgiveness is insightful and enlightening and helpful to you. And we'll leave it at that. Tomorrow we will be here on day 21 with a new selection. And let's go ahead and make a swap here with our selection for day 21, which is, and we're reading every day. We're reading every day. Some things we read ahead of time, and some things we are reading and researching and doing everything that we can to make sure that we bring you something good to listen to. So tomorrow is science fiction. And the funny thing is, I had a thought, although it is science fiction. I just watched a showing of Hidden Figures, which is not fiction. It's very much a real story about the three women who helped get um, man into space, U.S. men into space, that is. And so that is, Mrs. Catherine Jackson, Mrs. Dorothy Vaughn, and Mrs. Catherine Johnson, Mrs. Dorothy Vaughn, and Mrs. Mary Jackson. And so if you have not seen the movie Hidden Figures, I would certainly invite you to go watch it because it's science, nonfiction. So, but I had a thought about science fiction, and so I'm going to see if I can follow that up and get that person to join us in an interview. We will likely have to air it another day, but I think it will be a joy to have that person with us. And so we will be back tomorrow with our selection for science fiction. And we love a lot. There's a lot of science fiction out there by Black authors. And so we're looking for, we believe that we'll bring you something really good tomorrow so that you can enjoy a little sci fi. How about that? Have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.